My name is Mark Cerbone. I'm originally from central New Jersey, right outside New York City, but we live and work here in Buffalo. Married to Diane, we have 3 children. My story is relatively simple. I learned things from Scripture during my college years that I thought were provocative and I had never really heard before in all my years of being raised in the church. I took the chance to move into inner city Philadelphia for very little money and to take on some real risk for 2 years. And I put myself in the position of a learner. And I took the time to learn to hear my neighbors' stories, to take chances, to put myself in uncomfortable situations. I tell people, if you want to become truly comfortable in an urban community, you have to take 1,000 steps beforehand of being uncomfortable, before you finally cross the threshold, so that not only do you sense that you're comfortable, be it in inner city Buffalo, inner city Denver, inner city Portland, but people in urban communities know that you're comfortable. It brings credibility not only to who you are, but to the gospel, to the God you're seeking to represent. So living in Philly, I encountered my own classism, I encountered my own racism, I encountered my own prejudices. I learned that life is a whole lot different than I ever knew it to be before. By being the only white guy on the playground playing basketball, the only white guy on the football team traveling around the city, by sometimes not going to church in order to do other things that I felt were deeply spiritual, by becoming part of my block club, by hearing story after story of people from a different class and a different culture whose reality was far different than anything I had ever experienced growing up where I did or going to school where I did. It was a tremendous learning experience, and it helped me see the Bible in entirely different ways. Because when you grow up hearing the Bible primarily taught through the eyes of white educated males, you only see this much. But when you begin to see it and experience it from so many different valid experiences, you begin to see things make sense like they've never made sense before in the Scripture. And you begin to connect those principles with real life. So incarnational living is, for me and now for my wife, even for our girls in Norway, is crucial. There is no governor on the engine. When you live and serve and work and walk and talk and experience the community that you're attempting to reach, because you've become part of the community. So the principles, first principles I really began to get a handle on right out of college have served well to this day. Those same principles carry over, and people like Sider, Campolo, John Perkins, Jim Wallace, and others who've been saying these things for decades now have influenced hundreds and thousands of us who are now entering middle age, who are really captured by this vision of a countercultural, incarnational gospel with a special concern for the poor, for the weak, for the distressed, for God's creation, and for not coming in from the outside, but making the community your own and seeing how God is already here, already at work, and how much there is to learn from folks who live here and for whom this is their daily reality. What I keep coming back to is that in some important ways the gospel makes the most sense in the context of poverty, in the context of regular need, of obvious. Jesus obviously made it a priority to spend substantial time with the members of society who were considered the most unwelcome, the least attractive, the most weak, the most disposable, in our own very modest way. We at PCC believe that by identifying as much as we can with our community, not only do huge parts of the gospel make more sense, but indeed, by learning from our neighbors, by hearing their stories, by beginning to understand their needs as they articulate them, not as we see them, but as they articulate them, we can craft programs and ministries and caring that is most attuned to the real and felt needs of folks who live in the West Side and in other parts of Buffalo. To be effective urban ministers, you need to sit, you need to listen, you need to learn, you need to be willing to take risks, to feel uncomfortable, to be teachable, to ask a whole lot of questions.